Mind creatures. Creatures of the mind exist in a variety of forms. There is that remarkable population of lifelike entities that inhabits the world of dreams. And there are convincing make-believe playmates, sometimes of long duration, that many children create for themselves. This is not to mention the reported menagerie of visions induced by drugs and alcohol. These manifestations are all subjective and not perceived by others. There are, however, apparitions that make public appearances. Some of these are said to be the perceptible double, the etheric counterpart, of a living person who is undergoing an out-of-the-body experience. Even more mysterious are the externalized, perceptible manifestations of something whose existence originated in the mind of its creator, by virtue of that person's incredible powers of concentration, visualization, and other, more occult, efforts of mind. In Tibet, where such things are practiced, a ghost of this kind is called a tulpa. A tulpa is usually produced by a skilled magician or yogi, although in some cases it is said to arise from the collective imagination of superstitious villagers, say, or of travelers passing through some sinister tract of country. A nulpa, the Tibetans claim, may sometimes be so vigorous as to produce its own secondary emanation, known as a yang-tul, and this may, in turn, produce an emanation of the third degree, a nying-tul. Adepts able to originate such multiple manifestations are rare and are usually found among the Buddhist saints, or bodhisattvas. Some are able to produce 10 different kinds of tulpa. These include apparently animate beings, whether human, animal, or supernatural, and those emanations that appear in the dreams of whomever the bodhisattva intends to help. Few Westerners have had an opportunity to investigate the apparently fanciful Tibetan claims outlined above. One who did was the French scholar and traveler Alexandre David-Néel, who spent 14 years in Tibet and studied the doctrines of Tantric Buddhism with a number of eminent lamas. The only woman lama at that time, she was widely honored for her contribution to the understanding of Tibetan thought. Later, she published 2 accounts of her experiences in that remote and little-known country. The following description of her own experience with a talpa is taken from her book, Magic and Mystery in Tibet. Besides having had few opportunities of seeing thought forms, my habitual incredulity led me to make experiments for myself, and my efforts were attended with some success. Chose for my experiment a most insignificant character, a monk, short and fat, of an innocent and jolly type. I shut myself into Sam's meditative seclusion and proceeded to perform the prescribed concentration of thought and other rites. After a few months, the phantom monk was formed. His form grew gradually fixed and lifelike looking. He became a kind of guest, living in my apartment. I then broke my seclusion and started for a tour with my servants and tents. The monk included himself in the party. Though I lived in the open, riding on horseback for miles each day, the illusion persisted. I saw the fat Trapa novice monk. Now and then it was not necessary for me to think of him to make him appear. The phantom performed various actions of the kind that are natural to travelers and that I had not commanded. For instance, he walked, stopped, looked around him. The illusion was mostly visual, but sometimes I felt as if a robe was lightly rubbing against me, and once a hand seemed to touch my shoulder. The features which I had imagined when building my phantom gradually underwent a change. The fat, chubby-checked fellow grew leaner. His face assumed a vaguely mocking, sly, malignant look. He became more troublesome and bold. In brief, he escaped my control. Once, a herdsman who brought me a present of butter saw the tulpa in my tent and took it for a live llama. I ought to have let the phenomenon follow its course, but the presence of that unwanted companion began to prove trying to my nerves. It turned into a day nightmare. Moreover, I was going to Lhasa, so I decided to dissolve the phantom. I succeeded, but only after 6 months of hard struggle. My mind creature was tenacious of life.